The wind howled across the barren wasteland, kicking up a storm of ash and dust that swept through the jagged remains of what had once been a mighty city. Commander Jack Hunter trudged through the debris, his heavy boots crunching over shattered glass and broken stone. His destination, a bounty, some criminal hiding out on this desolate planet. Just another job in a galaxy that had long lost its luster. Max, his cybernetic dog, padded beside him, ears twitching at every strange sound. The dog was more machine than animal now, enhanced after countless missions gone wrong. But Max was loyal, maybe the only thing in Jack's life that hadn't let him down. "Come on, boy," Jack muttered, eyes scanning the horizon for movement. Nothing but silence and decay. That was, until Max stopped, his mechanical limbs stiffening, growling low in his throat. Jack's hand instinctively went to his blaster. "What is it?" Max darted forward, vanishing into the shadows of a half-collapsed building. Cursing under his breath, Jack followed. He had learned long ago that Max's instincts were rarely wrong. He ducked inside, and that's when he heard it, a soft whimper. A child's cry. Cautiously, Jack moved deeper into the ruins, eyes adjusting to the gloom. In a corner, huddled beneath a tattered piece of cloth, was a figure. Small. Frail. His heart skipped, a child, but as he moved closer, the figure raised its head, and Jack saw the shimmering silver skin and wide, fear-filled eyes of an alien girl. Not just any alien, her intricate robes, now dirty and torn, hinted at royalty. She flinched as he approached, shrinking back. "No, don't hurt me," she whispered in broken galactic basic. Jack stopped in his tracks. "I'm not here to hurt you, kid." Max, now calm, patted over and nudged the girl's leg with his nose. She hesitated, then reached out a trembling hand, touching Max's metal snout with wide-eyed wonder. Jack crouched down. "What's your name?" "Zaina," she stammered. "Princess Zaina." A knot formed in Jack's stomach. He had heard rumors of the Seraphian Empire's collapse. The violent coup that wiped out its ruling family. If this girl was who she claimed to be, she was worth more than a fortune. More than his bounty, more than 1,000 bounties, but that also meant she was a target. A target for people far worse than him. He could walk away. Leave her here. It wasn't his problem, but Max sat protectively by her side, his loyalty unmistakable. Jack sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Of all the damn things." Zaina looked up at him, eyes pleading. "Please, help me. They'll find me. And they'll kill me." Jack stood, torn. Then, with a grim smile, he reached down and offered her his hand. "Come on, kid. Let's get you out of here." As the distant hum of approaching drones echoed through the ruined streets, Jack knew he'd just stepped into something far bigger than a simple bounty. The air was thick with tension as Jack led Princess Zaina through the crumbling ruins of the planet's surface. Every step echoed in the hollow emptiness, the shadows of the dead city pressing in on them from all sides. Max, ever vigilant, stayed ahead, nose to the ground, scanning for threats. They had to move fast. Xantos Creel's hunters were already closing in. "Keep up," Jack whispered, glancing over his shoulder. Zaina stumbled on a broken slab of stone, her robes dragging through the dirt. She was terrified but tried to hide it behind a mask of quiet determination. She didn't complain, didn't ask questions. Just followed him without hesitation. Jack admired that. Most people would have fallen apart by now. Suddenly, Max froze, ears twitching. Jack's hand shot to his blaster, eyes narrowing as the faint hum of drones buzzed through the air. Creel's forces were near. He grabbed Zaina's arm, pulling her into the cover of a nearby alley, a narrow space between two towering ruins. "Stay down," he ordered, crouching behind a collapsed wall. Zaina crouched beside him, her wide eyes searching his face. "Why are they after me?" she whispered. "Creel doesn't care who you are. He just wants to make sure you're dead." "Loose ends don't sit well with warlords," Jack muttered, watching the horizon where three shadowy figures appeared. accompanied by floating drones. They were bounty hunters, heavily armed and scanning the wreckage for any sign of life. Zaina bit her lip, hugging her knees. "But I'm just a child." "Doesn't matter," Jack said, eyes never leaving the hunters. "You're worth more to him dead than alive." Max growled low, ready to pounce at the slightest movement. Jack gently rested his hand on the dog's head. "Not yet, boy." The hunters moved closer, their drones scanning every crack, every broken corner of the ruins. Jack knew they were running out of time. The narrow alley wouldn't hide them forever, and once they were spotted, there'd be no escape. "Okay, listen." Jack turned to Zaina, his voice low but firm. "When I say run, you run. Don't look back. Max will guide you. I'll deal with these guys." Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. "But, no buts. You run. Max will keep you safe." Zaina nodded, trembling but determined. Jack could see the fear in her eyes, but there was something else there too, strength. More than most would have in her situation. The moment stretched, tension like a wire ready to snap. The hunters were just feet away now, their drones buzzing overhead. One of them glanced towards their hiding spot. Jack's muscles coiled, ready to move, now. Jack barked, Zaina bolted from the alley, Max by her side, weaving through the rubble. The hunters reacted instantly, raising their rifles, but Jack was faster. He burst from cover, blaster in hand, unleashing a flurry of shots that tore through the closest bounty hunter. The battle had begun, but now, it was a race against time. Blaster fire echoed through the dead city like thunder, each shot sending bursts of debris into the air. Jack ducked behind a crumbling pillar as a laser bolt seared past his face, barely missing him. He returned fire, hitting one of the bounty hunters square in the chest, dropping him to the ground with a heavy thud, but there were still two more, and their drones were circling like vultures, hunting for Zaina. Max and the princess were a blur in the distance, dashing through the ruins. Jack's chest tightened as he saw the drones shift course, locking onto the girl. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath, he had to draw their attention away from her. Raising his blaster, he fired at one of the drones, shattering it in a shower of sparks. The other one whirled toward him, its crimson eye fixing on his position. Jack cursed and dove deeper into the shadows, vaulting over a fallen column and landing hard on the other side. The bounty hunters weren't far behind. The ground trembled as the lead hunter, a hulking creature covered in battle armor, charged through the rubble, blaster cannon mounted on his shoulder. His gravelly voice bellowed through the silence. "You think you can hide? Human. This planet will be your grave." Jack gritted his teeth, pulling out a small thermal grenade. He waited until the brute was close, then tossed it into the open. The explosion sent a shockwave through the ruins, collapsing part of the structure and sending the hunter sprawling to the ground. That bought him time, but not much. They were relentless. "Max, get her to the ship." Jack yelled into his comm. There was a soft beep in response, confirming the dog's directive. He could only hope Max would make it in time. He sprinted through the ruins, weaving between broken walls and collapsed towers. His mind raced, trying to figure out a way out of this death trap. The city stretched out in all directions. But there was one place he hadn't gone, the underground catacombs. It was risky, but he didn't have a choice. Spotting an old drainage tunnel half covered in debris, Jack made a dash for it. Just as he reached the entrance, a blast from behind knocked him to the ground, sending searing pain through his side. He grunted, rolling into the tunnel, clutching his ribs as blood seeped through his shirt. The second bounty hunter, a slender woman with a cold, calculating gaze, approached. She moved with precision, her blaster trained on him. "You're protecting a dead princess, hunter," she sneered, her voice cutting through the air like ice. "Hand her over, and I might let you live." Jack's hand inched toward the detonator in his belt. "Yeah, well, I've never been good at making deals." He pressed the button. The tunnel exploded with a deafening roar, collapsing in on itself. Dust and stone filled the air, blocking the hunter's path. Jack coughed, forcing himself to his feet as the tunnel quaked around him. There was no going back now, his only chance was forward, into the unknown. Jack's vision blurred as he stumbled through the collapsing tunnel, the sound of the explosion still ringing in his ears. Dust choked the air, and the faint flicker of emergency lights from his wrist device barely illuminated the path ahead. His side throbbed from the blaster wound, each step sending jolts of pain through his body, but he couldn't stop. Zaina was out there, alone, hunted, and vulnerable. He had made a promise. The narrow passage twisted deeper into the underbelly of the ruined city, the catacombs spreading like a maze beneath the surface. Legend said this place was once a sanctuary, a hidden refuge built to protect its people during the fall of the Seraphian Empire. Now, it was a tomb, long forgotten by the galaxy. Jack's breathing grew ragged as he pressed on, keeping one hand on the wall for balance. He knew the bounty hunters would follow him, they always did. But if he could just reach Zaina and Max before they did, there was a chance. Slim, but still a chance. After what felt like an eternity, the tunnel opened up into a vast underground chamber. It was ancient, the walls lined with faded Seraphian glyphs and towering statues of long-dead rulers. In the center, a narrow beam of light from a distant crack in the ceiling illuminated a stone platform where Zaina stood, her small frame dwarfed by the grandeur around her. Max stood protectively at her side, his metal frame gleaming in the dim light, growling softly as Jack approached. Zaina turned to him, her eyes wide with relief and fear. "You came back," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the chamber. "I said I would, didn't I?" Jack grimaced, clutching his side as he limped toward her. "But we don't have much time. They're coming." As if on cue, the distant sound of footsteps echoed through the tunnel behind them. Jack's heart sank. Xantos Creel's forces were close. Zaina's voice trembled. "What do we do?" Jack glanced around, trying to find an escape. His mind raced, calculating every possible move. The catacombs stretched deeper into the planet, but there was no guarantee they wouldn't be cornered. And fighting off a warlord's bounty hunters with a wounded arm wasn't exactly a winning plan. Then, his eyes caught something, an ancient control panel, half hidden in the shadows near the base of one of the statues. He limped over to it, wiping away centuries of dust to reveal a glowing interface. "What is this?" Zaina asked, stepping closer. Jack's fingers flew over the controls. "I think it's the old Seraphian defense system. If I can activate it, it might buy us time." The footsteps grew louder, almost on top of them now. Jack's heart pounded in his chest. The panel flickered to life, glyphs flashing across the screen as the chamber began to rumble. The bounty hunters burst into the chamber, weapons drawn, but before they could fire, the statues came to life. Ancient machines, once guardians of the Seraphian Empire, now rose from their dormant slumber. Their eyes glowed with a deadly red light, and they turned toward the intruders. Jack grabbed Zaina's hand. "Run!" As the stone guardians clashed with the hunters, Jack and Zaina dashed through the chaos, deeper into the labyrinth. The last thing Jack saw before the tunnel swallowed them whole was the crumbling Empire's final defense, fighting to protect its last surviving heir, but they weren't safe yet.